the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a presentation from the library. It's not on my agenda, is it?
So the first one, yeah.
Oh, we skipped. Yes, okay. Sorry, hold on. We'll do the 2021 Municipal General Election Canvass, Resolution R21-60.
I believe you're acting as the Board of Municipal Canvassers in this role.
Okay. I will entertain a motion.
I move as a board member of the municipal canvassers to approve item 1, the 2021 municipal general election canvass resolution R2160 dated today.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first from Board Member Karn, a second from Board Member Porter. Any further discussion? Board Member Podeska? Aye. Porter?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Karn?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Now it's your turn, Melissa. Thank you.
Not really my turn. I'm going to hand it over to Kevin from Blaylock and Partners, who did our facilities needs analysis.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. As Melissa mentioned, I'm Kevin Blaylock with Blaylock and Partners. We were engaged to assist the library in facility needs assessment to kind of figure out what the library's options were in terms of the next step for growth. I think this is controlling, right? Yeah. So our tasks really consisted of a number of tasks designed around 3 outcomes. I want to talk quickly about the interim solution and funding, items 1 and 3, and spend most of the time talking about the future needs. We evaluated an interim solution for the library to occupy an existing space at kind of a high level. It didn't seem to be very feasible given the amount of growth that Saratoga Springs is experiencing. The thought of vacant buildings becoming available that would meet the library's needs in an interim status didn't seem to be very cost prohibitive, and the likelihood of those buildings being vacant for the duration of the library's temporary occupancy seemed to be low. So there's a little bit more information on that approach in the overall report, and again, I'm happy to answer questions at any time. And then item 3 on funding, that is always a difficult topic. Historically, public libraries throughout the country are funded by the cities, the municipalities that they're supporting. And that is true of about 85% of the public libraries throughout the nation. That includes initial funding for construction, but also considers ongoing operations, maintenance, and staffing requirements. So we did identify a few different scenarios in the report to achieve funding. But that obviously is part of a kind of a bigger, broader question on overall city needs. So the largest focus of our study really consisted of the future needs of the library, and we were asked to consider what would it take to achieve a 21st century library. And that phrase, that verbiage, 21st century library, actually doesn't have anything to do with architecture or design or how it looks. It's more about the design and planning principles that go into the thought process of developing a new public library. And they're focused, those principles are focused on leveraging three community assets: people, place, and platform. And so a 21st century library is really people-focused instead of historically we were very book-focused. So libraries became kind of very large book warehouses. So the 21st century library really shifts to being more user-centric and people-focused. As a place, they become a space for anyone, regardless of age or social status or political beliefs. They're kind of open for everyone, you know, from the infant to the 102-year-old or whoever's still able to use it. And it's really important to note that while books are still kind of the cornerstone of a library, the 21st century library has really embraced like the virtual place as well. A lot of electronic media are now available through the public library. And then as a platform, a library is very user-centered. It's very much about experiential learning. We now know as a society that so much of our learning, K through 12, comes through experiences, as opposed to just kind of studying memorization in books and textbooks. Ultimately, the 21st century library is designed to foster civic growth. So our process looked at 4 different options, really from the 12,000 square foot library up, and then in about 8,000 square foot increments from 12,000 to 20,000, 20,000 to 28, and then up to 36,000. So I do think this is older than what I had sent for the city council presentation. So, okay. Just at a high level, the 21st century library focuses on creating 60% of its space for the public, for people, and then 20% of this space for books, and then 20% of the space for staff and support areas. Just going to open this other document. So as a process, we looked at first at the city history and library history, and we're just very encouraged to see that those 2 missions were very much aligned, centered around the idea of promoting the quality of life for the residents of Saratoga Springs. At the moment, you're somewhere around 37,000 population. That was kind of straight off of the U.S. Census Bureau estimate for 2021, off of 2020 numbers. With the idea that we're probably growing to 51,000 residents by 2025 and approximately 65,000 residents by 2041. You guys are obviously well familiar with the challenges you're facing with this kind of growth. In terms of process, we also looked at the existing building, 2,900 square feet, which is 0.075 square feet per person. And the historic average for libraries is somewhere between 0.6 and 1 square foot per person. This is just a factor of you guys had this space. The city council kind of created the library based out of a group of volunteers, and it's just sort of grown and evolved over time. There is an exceptional amount of usage, 6,500 active card holders, more than 96,000 visitors annually, and 164,000 checkouts. So those checkout numbers are about 1,000 times the national average for a community this size. So that really tells us that there's a real strong passion in the community for the library. And that was kind of further vetted through our public outreach process. We attended Splash Days, the kickoff of Splash Days, on June 7th, and went through a public outreach process where we sent out some physical surveys. We interacted with the public on some library boards to get a sense of the types of spaces that they were interested in for a new library. Gathering all of that data, we also included some survey process about how much money or monthly household would be willing to invest in a new library. We tried to put that in terms of regular daily or monthly expenses, such as kind of a specialty soda or dirty soda, kind of a fast food Happy Meal kind of thing, a large pizza, and then a movie or TV streaming subscription like Netflix or something. So we were pleasantly surprised that a lot of the public actually were in favor of, more than 50% were in favor of spending at least $3 a month per household on supporting a new library. So again, just going back to the 21st century library principles, people, place, and platform, and then with the demographic information that we knew from some research in the public outreach process, we set about right-sizing, what we call right-sizing a facility. And that starts to align the demographics, the growth, and the city and library vision statements or mission statements to really identify a size that we think is most ideal. And really it's a process of working backwards, knowing that you guys are reaching in excess of 65,000, a population size of more than 65,000 in 20 years. We look at that as a benchmark. And at that number of residents, full-time residents, we estimate a library size of between 52,000 and 58,000 square feet. However, we would strongly recommend that that be split out into 2 different facilities, just based on the geographic nature of Saratoga Springs, kind of having this long north-south axis. It just makes a lot of sense to have a central location and then perhaps support the growth in the southern sector of the city. So, really, our recommendation ultimately is you should only design and build what you can afford, and that becomes the challenge in sort of balancing a lot of city priorities that you must be faced with the exponential growth that Saratoga Springs is experiencing. We're obviously encouraging our clients to consider exactly what's in your mission statement, the quality of life, and the idea that the library plays a critical role in that quality of life. So based on all of our research, our past experience, we really think the city of Saratoga Springs could easily support a library of 36,000 square feet, which was option 4 in our approach, in our feasibility analysis. Obviously, that is the largest one, and then at 36,000 square feet in 20 to 25 years, you could then consider an expansion to the south, in the southern part of the city. The construction costs and total project costs for each option were also identified in the feasibility study. And I'm sorry, my screen and this are not quite aligned, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Councilman Porter?
Yeah, I guess I have a couple. The construction costs that are listed in here, are these based off of like recent libraries, or is this based on, I mean, we've seen a large amount of inflation in construction costs recently. Is that taken into account in the numbers, or?
Yeah, it is, it's driving everybody crazy, our recent construction cost escalation. And it's continuing. We do a lot of public projects, so it's always sort of a moving target. This is our best educated guess right now.
Okay.
But this does consider a 2023 construction start date,
Okay.
if that makes sense, right? So we know that you're in the very early stages right now. You can't possibly have a package ready to go probably until 2023 at the earliest. So beyond that, the construction outlook is hopeful that the escalation that we're seeing right now cannot be sustained, but it's probably going to level off. So at that point, we should probably go back to the sort of that 4% escalation factor annually. So that's what we included in the report as something to consider if you move the construction start date out past 2023, just start to apply that 4% annual increase.
The other, I appreciate the various options and understanding, one of the things I hoped to get from this was an understanding of what that right size is for a final library. Sounds like we need 2 branches of roughly the size of option 4 at full build out,
Yeah, two branches. We would recommend it somewhere between a total of 52 and 58,000 square feet.
Okay.
To
Looks like it might be a little smaller.
Yeah, to address your 20-year build-out of 65,000 plus, and then probably gets you to that 90,000, 100,000 population, which seemed to be like what the city was anticipating as their max.
Okay. I will say I'm a little disappointed that the interim solutions were seemed to be given short shrift. Just at our last council retreat, or last year, when we identified needs the city has in the 5-year window, I believe that the project total came out just shy of $200 million. I'll be honest, we don't have $200 million in the next 5 years to meet all of those needs. That did not anticipate spending $20 million on a library facility. So that this would be added on top of, so there was some money in there, I believe, for a library, but not a figure that large. I know our library is struggling. It's just not big enough for the services that it is called on to provide. And our staff are, I volunteered down there and they're all stuffed into closets and it's an untenable situation to continue going forward. And $20 million in the next couple of years is probably something that's going to be very difficult to achieve. And so I was really hoping that we could, our city's excelled at thinking outside the box for solutions. And I was hoping we could find some ways to do that. You talked in your introduction about the fact that you don't know that if there's going to be available space for that. That was one of the concerns with finding an interim solution.
Yeah, admittedly, we did not do a kind of a deep dive analysis of, available properties in Saratoga Springs. But our understanding was the properties are in such demand. So, Sarah, let me back up. What we did identify is a target square footage as an interim space that might be a 3 to 5 year stay. Right? And from that was a construction cost of $2.5 to $2.5 to $3 million roughly. And that got us 6,000 to 10,000 square feet, sort of as this Band-Aid approach. Definitely doable, right? the problems that we were thinking that we were up against were, is there that size space that's available at a reasonable rate, right? That is a very, very low, that's $145 a square foot as like a tenant build out. So you would have to find sort of that sweet spot that satisfies that. At the end of the day, when that project would be executed became an unknown. The duration of stay became an unknown. And whether or not that space would be available became an unknown. So it was then our recommendation is to like put that $2.5 to $3 million focus on a new facility. Again, of whatever size you guys can afford by balancing all of your other priorities. It's a great problem to have, except when it comes to the dollars.
Right. Can you remind me, when we had our meeting last week the number was thrown out, I want to say it was 2 to 3 million square feet of commercial space that's possible to come into the city. Am I way off base on that?
No, that would be office warehouse.
Right.
Commercial.
Business part, like the Class B,
million, I
that some
think
of
was the
these
number.
tilt up. I just,
Actually, that was for warehouse logistics centers primarily.
right, that was if they built out to the previously allowed total. I know we have, I know it's not a beautiful answer because people like to go to the library and see a beautiful building, but if we can't afford a $20 million facility in the next 5 years and we can't continue to exist in the way we are now, why are we not considering, leveraging some of that space? We wouldn't have to build it. They'll build it. We would be tenants. We can sign a 3-year lease or a 5-year lease or something like that. I think we need to find a solution that will serve the citizens of Saratoga Springs in the near term. And by the near term, I mean in the next year or two. I think in a couple of years, we're going to be at a failure state in our current library, if we're not already there.
Yeah, just to comment on that, on the discussion about potential office warehouse or warehouse space was not a factor that was on the table when they conducted their research. So that's why it wasn't looked at
Understood.
at the time.
I just hope that I hope we can find a solution, because I just don't know how we're going to afford a $20 million facility in the next 5 years. And so we need to find something else to do. So I'll shut up.
Mayor, if I could.
Councilman, Mark?
I was just going to say, I think that's actually a really innovative thought, so thank you very much. And I think that that's definitely something that we can and ought to consider as a potential alternative as well.
Councilman Carn?
Yeah, I was trying to write it down and I missed it. You were going over numbers on square footage by population. Can you give me those numbers again? Like how many square feet your library should be to your population? It was point something up to 1 to 1.
You're talking about the traditional metrics.
Yeah, and the reason I asked is because option 4, the biggest option, is where we're at today. And if we built that, are we at capacity? If we build option 4 today, which is the biggest, most expensive, are we at capacity on day 1?
Yeah, so back up for a second. For the library design principles, these 21st century library design principles have really kind of come into play in the last 7 or 8 years. So prior to that, for the 50 or so years prior to that, everybody was using a very traditional metric of 0.6 to 1 square feet per resident,
Okay.
right? So if you were to follow that through, when you're at 100,000 people, you'd be somewhere between 60,000 and 100,000 square feet of library space. What we've in library land have found over the last 10 years are cities are overbuilding libraries based on these numbers, and they're continually fighting with the building because it's too big, it's too expensive to operate, it's too expensive to staff. So we actually pride ourselves on innovative solutions as well, and we try to convince cities, counties, municipalities to do more with less space, which is a very difficult thing for library staff sometimes to embrace, but we can demonstrate how that's been successful. So what we try to do is back to that right-sizing the library based on growth, goals, and community demographics. So that's how we arrived at that sort of 52,000 to 58,000 square foot total library build-out for 2041 to 2045.
So 55,000, what was it, 58,000 you said
Yeah.
total?
Yeah.
And what's your
52
population estimate on that?
That was based on an estimate of approximately 65,000 square residents or a little bit more at year 2041 to 2045.
That's low. I think that's low.
You think that's
I
what?
think that's low, Mark. Population by 2050?
I mean, we're growing.
According to
roughly
MAG,
4,000 we're growing roughly 4,000 a year.
I thought MAG had us at like 80-something thousand by then. I could be wrong.
It's 80 at the end of whatever their current visioning cycle is.
Yeah.
Which was
Okay.
2050.
All right, so that's great. I can do those numbers. My next question I had, I didn't see in here, do you have anywhere in here what the annual operation budget would have to be to support the 4 options?
No, our task didn't go into that detail.
Okay. So, option 4, a $20 million bond, and then you gotta add X to the budget every year to run
Is
it.
it roughly proportional?
Is it a
Like,
percentage?
We currently have a 6,000 square foot library. If we multiply that by 10, is that?
Isn't our library 2,900 square feet?
Does it scale with economies of scale?
Melissa, could you maybe try and weigh in on that a little bit?
Is our library 2,900 square feet today?
So, yes, that's our current space. It's really not roughly proportional. I can tell you Lehigh is about $1 million a year. Yes, in operations.
Do you know how big this, do you know how many square feet they are?
Let me pull it up. I do have it.
Okay. And I'm assuming they're old school library, heavy on the books.
They renovated within the last 2 years, and
Okay.
no, they've taken those concepts into the renovation process.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
I want to say they're around 35,000 square feet, but
So if they're
Can I send you
35,000,
the-
that's our
the-
option 4.
the numbers,
What's
when I
that?
get back, can I send you those exact square footage numbers when I get back to my computer?
I'm just wondering, if they're 35,000 square feet, they got $1 million annual budget. That's what our option 4 would be. Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's a lot of pipe in the
definitely,
ground.
there's definitely economies of scale, right? But it's a big bite of the apple. And that's, one of the reasons that we were asked to identify 4 potential
Sure.
options and allow for some future growth and some flexibility. And I guess I'm trying to remind everybody that using the traditional metric, there would probably be a voice in the room that's saying you should go larger than what I'm recommending.
Sure.
So I'm saying like, tighten the belt on that. I don't think you need to build as large as the historic library, and you can do more with less.
Well, we can get into this at a different time, I guess, but there's always the options of building it as the first floor of
Of the
something
city.
else, City Hall.
Right.
The county's looking for office space out here, we could rent, lease to them. There's other ways to help fund that.
Yeah.
And that was,
And not look for an interim, we could do it and potentially look at doing it with other funding solutions through lease space.
Yeah. I'm open to anything that solves the problem.
Councilman Wilden?
No, I appreciate the recommendation, and this isn't reflective of you, just consultants in general. They're always going to recommend the biggest and the best thing. That's why we had someone come in and recommend that we put a Ferris wheel on an island by the hot spots, I'm not saying you're not doing that, but I appreciate it, but You know, one of the things I don't think we should do as a city is, you mentioned 10 years ago, or 6, 7 years ago, it was like 1 square foot per person or whatever. Now it's smaller. I'd imagine that's gonna shrink or look different in 10 years. My preference would be, hey, let's build something that supports some growth, but in a modular format, like we did for the police department or other things where we can expand it out. Or even maybe the buildings there, we did that with the police. We didn't make everything functional, and so there's some cost savings there. So from my standpoint, option 4 is a no-go, the way it's written. It's just, we're building on something using a metric to support out what in 20 years we may be at, where that metric is just gonna change, and there's no models to predict what that metric's really gonna look like. But we can at least have the space, which we're gonna do, at least the ground space, right? We're gonna do that later today. And then we can build either a footprint or a module building. And when I was going through it, looking at like option 2, worst case scenarios, we lose a craft room. There's religious buildings that can be used for that. I don't know. You know, I don't think that we need to, I don't feel heartbroken if we don't have a craft room or some of these other things. So I'm not throwing your suggestion out the window. I understand why you did it, but like from a fiscally responsible standpoint, and then actually looking at how metrics change over time, I would bet 5 years it's gonna look totally different. Maybe higher, unlikely based upon where we're going, but I know in January, we're gonna have a capital planning discussion. I think we can figure that out, but that's where I would lean, is building something that solves the problem now and can get us to 5 to 10 years, but it might even go 20, 30, depending on how the metrics shift over time. And if it doesn't, we have the footprint to build out further with not huge additional costs. So maybe we'll get to 20 million one day, but I think we can get what we need for long-term with half that.
Are we just open discussion here?
Yeah.
No, I'm done. You're done too.
My only thought on that is, if we do look at it as as part of a campus, municipal campus, and there's city hall, you know, you don't, even if you finished out, whatever the number is, 36,000 square feet on the first floor and only finished half of it and left half of it, you know, expandable in the future, but you got your city building built, that's, you know, something to look at too.
Yeah, and then you have the options of the city needs, if the city offices,
Sure.
if the library doesn't need to expand to fill that second floor, the city offices could expand if they need it.
May I?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're open discussion.
Well, my only like hesitation is building a bigger building outside of just a library will raise the cost beyond, say, like the 10 million that we're talking about. And then if we have to punt that for another 5 years, then
Yeah.
I like your suggestion on the lease. I don't know that economically it'll work out, because if it's only saves us 25% off the cost of a bond, then we're throwing 75% out the door
Right.
for.
I just wanna look at it. Maybe it works out, maybe
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Well, the question I had was, in the interim, is there flex space that we could use? Because I mean, I'm looking at this price tag of 19.3 million, and with the going lease rate of flex space of about $1 a square foot, I mean, that's 44 years worth of rent right there. I mean, yes, it's lost. Not saying we'd be in that space for 44 years, but you know, being in a flex space for 3 to 5 years, and that gets us in a much bigger area to see what space we need. That then can be transferred into a building.
Gives us time to plan it and do it right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I was just gonna say, this is a great problem, Melissa. It really is. I don't think any of you were on the council when we originally chartered the library to get a start. McComber was, and I was, and I remember when people were like, oh, it'll take 20 years to get it off the ground, or it's gonna fail, you know, and here we are, a few years later going, man, we've gotta have more space. The library took off faster than we ever dreamed it could have, from the community. So, you know, as part of this discussion, I don't want you to think that it's just, it grew faster than any of us thought, considering where we were sitting, and Councilman McComber can chime in if you'd like, but yeah, we remember sitting here going, it's never going to take off. We were putting books in the basement of a bank and sorting through some books that were really old. Like, I remember one came in that said, someday computers will be a large part of our life. And that was turned in and as we were logging these books into a computer. So yeah, I mean, it's come a long ways, which is great.
And Mayor, to that point, I think one thing that I think is probably one of the most critical elements of what we've studied here is that we've been remarkably successful. The volunteers, the employees, the citizens, those that dedicated books at the first, those that cataloged them, those that worked for free. I mean, there really needs to be a love note for us as a community of what we've been able to accomplish because it is spectacular. And to your point, Mayor, that success has some implications. And we're incredibly successful. Melissa and her team do an amazing job. And I think you said about 1,000 times is our circulation number. I mean, that is something to be amazed and celebrated as the definition of how well our team has done in creating such a great asset to our community. Now, the space, we've just outgrown it. That's really what it boils down to. And I think that this study gives us a good foundational understanding of the alternatives that are there. And we really didn't try and focus in this on how we're building it, right? I mean, it's a square box illustrative of the type of space that we'll need, which I think Ken and his team has done a good job of giving us kind of that pattern that we can use, look to use going forward. The nice thing though tonight is you don't have to make a decision on anything. And right now I think the best thing we could do is to take this, let the community digest it, let it be circulated out there. And then as we get into our planning discussions, the next discussions will be, what is it that we would like to do moving forward? And I think Kayla's going to say Michael has a comment.
Councilman McComber?
Yes, thank you. And I really appreciate all the comments that have been made. It's been very enlightening. I also want to thank the consultants for the recommendations. A couple of things that I just want to point out is we're talking about a rec center as well and going to a bond. And at $20 million, that's right in the same ballpark of going to a bond, going to a vote of the people and like we would of the rec center. I appreciate there were surveys done, but anything over $10-12 million for an amenity like a library or the rec center, I would want to have the residents of Saratoga Springs be involved. To the point of Mayor Miller and Mark Christensen, we have been innovative and creative in the past. I really don't think that we need to go away from our roots. We're very smart about thinking outside the box. We were able to start a library for thousands of dollars. And look how successful it was because people got involved. I also think the reason why the library is so successful is because the people got so involved and volunteering and participating. I mean, I would go and do reading with the literacy arts, the literacy center. My sisters have done lots of things with the arts and crafts and different things within the library over the years. So another thing, I mean, just for example, the craft center, we were sort of joking about that, but why don't we have an art center where people can pay to take an art class? The teacher gets a small portion and then the library gets the other balance, and then it can help fund the library. So, we have people pay to play baseball. We have people pay to play soccer. Why can't we have people pay to do crafts or learn how to paint or learn how to sculpt? And so, again, thinking outside the box. So I appreciate the feedback. Looking forward to having an ongoing conversation and discussion. I think that we can find, to Council Member Wilden's point, an interim solution that helps us get by. I am a fan of having the library be part of City Hall, as Karn has mentioned. And so I think that we can always have an interim solution until we can have more of a long-term solution as we move forward. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Melissa, genuinely from the council, this is a problem we're glad you're bringing to us. Hopefully we can find a solution that meets your needs and the needs of the budget and the community.
And the residents.
And yes, so thank you. Thank you for your time, sir. Okay, public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matter not listed on the agenda. Please be respectful in your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please avoid repetitive comments. If you are here for the public hearings tonight, the fiscal year 2021 budget amendments, the North Shore easements, or the drinking water, secondary water, and sewer impact fee plans, please hold your comments for the public hearing. Is there anybody here for public input at this time? If you'd come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name's Alexander Larson. I live at 3533 South Heritage Drive. Just a few quick comments. I'll try and keep it to 3 minutes. Just about City Code 19-18-10. There's some, just driving around Saratoga, I noticed there's some people with less than a 28-foot curb cut that don't have driveway parking. So are you going to ticket everybody, or are you going to be, how are you going to be equitable about that? I don't recommend ticketing, but that's what we have elected officials. The next part I want to talk about is, I don't want to waste your time, but I do want to be a little bit informative for you guys. That's about maybe public transport for the city, planning that going forward. I made a small little diagram. I don't know if you can see it or not. It talked about logistics. You can apply it to public transport. There's two main methods. There's a hub and spoke method or the point-to-point method. Hub and spoke method, it's used by the airline industry. If you think about, you fly from Chicago to Denver, right? You get on a small plane, fly to Chicago, and then you fly to Denver. It's the same thing. The military uses it. Point-to-point's a little bit less efficient, but there's reasons behind it. I'll let you guys do the research on that, on why it works. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. And then as far as like the bus, just a couple of recommendations for public transport. It is a cheaper method, but I don't think right now, I don't know who does the planning, if it's UTA or if it's in conjunction with the city, but right now it's not super efficient in my opinion, and just want to make a couple of comments on that. So possible bus transit designs for the UTA and possibly bringing here to Saratoga Springs would be to use the hub and spoke model. The collection point would probably be the best, when I was thinking about it, would probably be at Redwood and Pioneer Crossing, and a possible park and ride location south of Pioneer Crossing and west of Redwood. There's two main arteries that run through Saratoga Springs. There's Redwood Road and Pioneer Crossing. Possible design criteria would be for 70 to 90% of the residents to live within 3 miles of a bus station. This would mean that it would take a person 20 minutes to ride a bike at 9 miles per hour. Faster if you live up the hill, obviously, but for example, bus stations would be located at the front of neighborhoods on Redwood. That's just an example. The design goal would have it take close to the same amount of time as travel by car at a cheaper rate. To do this, you'd make dedicated bus lanes on Redwood and Pioneer Crossing, similar to Orem or Provo, if you guys have been over there. And then the end goal, once you collect everybody from Pioneer Crossing and Redwood Road at the junction there, they zip straight over to the UTA train station at American Fork. That's the closest one I found, obviously depending on where you live in Saratoga Springs. And there will be no stops between the collection point at the hub and Redwood to the UTA train station, and coordination would need to be done with UTA and Lehigh to construct dedicated bus lanes running from Pioneer and Redwood collection point to the UTA front runner. I believe it's a 750 that runs to Salt Lake. And as far as trying to keep costs down, buses should be diversified between electric, diesel, and natural gas to optimize fuel costs. And if people use a system, it would reduce emissions. I know you have different demographics on people in the community, and so people might like that. It would reduce emissions. However, the system has to be efficient in order for people to use it. Meaning, if it takes someone normally 45 minutes to get to work, they don't want to spend an hour and a half on a bus. And that's all I got. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Councilman Porter.
I know normally we don't directly engage, but I did want to speak to that just because we have been working with UTA trying to address the public transportation needs in the city. I will tell you that UTA is of the opinion that we don't need bus service on the west side of the lake. So we're going to continue to push on that.
Yes, okay.
Todd Carpenter. I'm at 1865 Peppermint Place. I'll be brief because I'm here with the library board. You've heard a lot about the library already tonight. Just on behalf of other members of the board that are here, just encourage you going through that docket. You guys know there's more that we can do, and I think one of the underwriting feelings that the residents put in, that you'll see in the docket, is that there's so much more we could do with the library if we had the space in the library. And if there's anything we can do to help you in making those decisions, we're happy to help.
Thank you. Thank you for the volunteer time to be on the board. Okay, anybody else here for public input?
My name is Donna Nyborg, and I'm just the chairperson for Friends of the Library. And just so you know that we have currently 35 going on to 40 people for Friends of the Library. And that was just due to the survey that was taken out. And then when I took it around, I had other friends take it around. You have a lot of public support for increasing the size of a library, and it's not just a warehouse for books. I'm sure you all have been other places around the country where libraries are, people want to go. They want to spend time, and that's where they interact with friends, have meetings, because not everybody belongs to an organization such as a church to be able to use it, and sometimes even where I live, the clubhouse is not relevant to people outside of that community. Community spaces are necessary, and I really appreciate the fact that y'all are seriously looking into this, because it's an integral part of what a library says a lot about a community. And I won't even tell you what my thought was when we first came. I figured that I know they are not illiterate, but maybe they just like to be on their four-wheelers a lot. I don't know. But that's my opinion when we've been here 8 years. And so I really appreciate your work. And I know people who'd be more than willing to pay for monthly a pizza to go to a library. So thank you for your time and your consideration. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Any other public input? Okay. Owen, was any sent in? Electron? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public input portion. Reports, anything from the council? Okay. Councilman Porter?
I've got a couple. I attended with Councilman Karn, and it was just, oh, that's right. It was, and Representative Moss, the groundbreaking for the IHC. It was a well attended, and it was really exciting to see them starting to move dirt on the emergency. Oh, that's right. I knew there was another one.
That was virtual.
So anyway, we're excited to see them breaking ground and starting on that project. And then yesterday, I attended the League LPC meeting. They're discussing some of the things that are forthcoming in the legislative session in January. Things that we need to be aware of. There are, I can talk to you guys offline, but there are some things that could affect us pretty drastically. So.
Okay. Councilman Karn?
Councilman Porter, do we expect the full version of the Utah Lake Authority bill to come back?
That wasn't talked about yesterday, but.
Do you know?
Wasn't discussed. There has been some discussion with Representative Brammer about it, but
He's gonna try to do something.
it's been a little bit quiet as of lately. We were expecting more conversations, and during the summer there was much more discussion, and then it's just kind of died off.
I've not heard anything at the Utah Lake Commission.
Yeah, and
it,
so I'm not sure where that's going to be. We expect that there will be additional
They were trying
legislation.
to figure out issues with water rights, and that it's probably going to depend on whether
A
they
Salt
solve
Lake
that or
County issue
not.
still.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Ken, you had something for us tonight in reports?
Yes, we had a successful kickoff meeting last week with our consultants for the general plan update. And so we're moving forward and preparing for the initial stages of that. One of those stages will begin in earnest in January, which is the public participation phase. And part of that would be the creation of a steering committee, which would involve 20 or so residents. And so we're looking for the names of residents. We talked today, Mayor and Mark and some of my staff talked today about names that we would suggest to bring forward. So I think we've got some good leads and some good names there. We did want to open it up to the council to suggest any names. We're looking in 3 different categories. One would be just residents at large. The other would be business or community organization leaders. And then the other would be governmental or school leaders. On that governmental school leaders, we did want to include a couple of planning commissioners and a couple of city council. So we've identified 2 planning commissioners, Troy Cunningham and Bryce McConkey, to serve in that capacity. We would like to invite the participation of 2 of you to also participate. That would be, we're looking at approximately 4 meetings, 2-hour length each, that will begin in January, once every 3 weeks. We're looking currently at a Wednesday afternoon, late afternoon time frame. So I guess I'll throw it back at you, Mayor, and see if there's anything further we want to do with that.
So yeah, we talked today about various businesses, and they're going to reach out to some of them, see who's interested that are been involved in the community in the past. We've talked about members of the SPAC committee, the old finance committee, different boards. So we've got a really good list. Tonight's discussion was hoping if there's 2 of you that are interested in being on this committee. We've got Councilman Karn. So we'll have Chris and Chris, unless anybody opposes from the council.
Okay.
Or
Who do we get from local business? You don't have to throw names, but are we just a small business?
we're looking to mix.
Local owners?
Some, like we're looking at like Costco because they're big community partners. We're looking at the Chamber of Commerce. We came up with a couple small businesses. We've got Les Schwab. He's been wanting to be involved in the community and how to help it grow and be part of it, Chris. And so we're talking to kind of big, middle, and small.
And I by no means want to volunteer one of my elected peers, but our school board member does live in our city, if you're looking for people from the school board.
Oh,
So,
Julie?
yeah.
We did list her as somebody to reach out to.
Yes, Julie
Okay.
King.
Okay. I know she's got a pretty busy calendar like everybody else, so her part-time school board gig is, full-time hours. But she'd be a really good person.
Her love of the community's big.
Yeah.
So, okay. So Ken, you got
Yep.
the 2 from the council?
Oh, we need there. Thank you.
Okay. Mark?
Consent item. We had forwarded to Cindy late last week, but it did not make it into the packet. So the consent calendar, there is an amended version of item number 1, which includes water rights for the property. And so it adds, it's section 6 of the agreement. So if you approve this as part of that, we would ask that you authorize staff to replace that item with the amended agreement, which includes water rights.
Okay, perfect. Okay, speaking of the consent items, I will entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
I move that we approve the consent items, including the option agreement, which includes the water rights for consent item 1. And with any staff findings and conditions attached to the respective items.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Porter, a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion from the council?
Just congratulations to Mark on his appointment.
Yes. Yes, that was his dream.
He lobbied me yesterday to get taken off, and I said, no, I think you're doing a great job.
Wilden was campaigning for you. Mark Christensen for sewer. So, okay,
Clarify the request that's down, I don't have a microphone, so maybe you can
you're loud.
hear this on
We can hear you.
Basically,
basically, we're asking for delegation of staff to enter into a revised agreement that includes that extra section regarding water rights.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just delegation of staff to replace that.
Okay.
It's a revised agreement.
Delegating staff to be able to approve section 6.
And I did forward to you a copy of that agreement, so you do have that in your emails now, but it was very late, and Jeremy noticed that, and let me know here, right as we're coming into it.
If that was amended motion, then I second that.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. Councilman McComber?
He's been off and on.
Okay. We'll check him at the end. Councilman Podeska?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Karn?
Aye.
Michael?
He's not on yet, is he?
Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Business item 1, the Sunrise Meadow Bike Park Award of Contract.
Mayor and Council, I'll take that one real quickly. What this is we're excited about this park. We bid it out. We received a grant for it, so there was a $150,000 grant that we received on this. If you recall, that'll be part of the budget amendment that'll take place a little bit later tonight. The bids came in higher than expected, and so again, we wanted to make sure that if you decide to move forward with this, we're going to need to amend the budget, and that's included in there. When you get to the budget amendment, just choose option 1 or 2. If you award the contract tonight, then you're going to need to make sure you approve option 2 in the budget amendments. Pros and cons, costs are escalating. This would complete that park over in that area. We did receive public feedback from the residents in the area on that park. If you choose not to award it, we can reduce the scope, we can rebid it when times hopefully are better, and we can financially do it. If we do move forward with it, though, this would give us pretty accurate costs as we amend park fees going forward.
Councilman Karn?
So I reviewed this with Mark, and this is an area that we've had a need for a long time. I'm in favor of approving this at the new numbers. I just don't want to have another change order show up in the project where they come back and say, hey, now it's going to be, 50,000 more, 70,000 more. So I'm in favor of this. Let's just not see any more change orders.
Just don't show up to those meetings when they come.
Okay, fair.
Then you don't have
Then I
to
don't
see
see
it.
it. Yeah. No, but I think this is a park that we've been looking at building for a very long time for this part of the community. So I think let's get this thing going.
And even in the state it's in, it's well utilized.
Yep.
So this is
So
a big
this will
benefit.
Yeah.
bring some really nice improvements to that.
Okay. If there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve business item 1, Sunrise Meadow Bike Park Award of Contract, SNL, Resolution R2167, dated today, with the new budget numbers in the report.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Karn, a second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion on the motion? Podeska?
Aye.
Karn?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
McComber? Okay, gotta love technical difficulties. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Quain, if you could join us for our first public hearing.
Yes, first public hearings, fiscal year 2021-2022 budget amendment, resolution R22-68.
Okay. Evening, Mayor and Council. This is the third budget amendment for this fiscal year. A few items of note is we're updating a few expense accounts with administration for various things like insurance and liabilities and all that, and sales tax expenses. Also, we're requesting a new IT position to help with the increased IT load that the city is experiencing with increased staffing.
Can I, really quick, with that new IT person, can we block my urgent requests for gift cards to Africa?
Mayor, I got one of those earlier today.
I know.
I sent the mayor one that he sent me today.
And
I got one myself.
It was for a discrete item that you wanted to keep quiet, so. We're working on that. Somehow you got on some list somewhere, and it seems daily our organization is peppered with these secret transactions you'd like to discuss with us, so.
Chris sent me one today, and then I sent myself one. So if we could, that would.
We'll certainly work on that. And,
Oh, I said the one he sent me.
on this particular item, we just have so much, on the day-to-day stuff. We want to get Kevin focused on the high-level, more important things, and this would be bringing in more of an entry-level IT person to help with the day-to-day stuff, so free up some time in that regard.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. Then we have further down on the list, we have the Patriot Park land purchase. That's the major item in this budget amendment. That park purchase is going to be financed by increased revenues in our park impact fees. Shifting around.
And more
fund-
specifically, we're transferring money in an interfund loan from the 5-year CIP to fund that. So that would be something that would ultimately be paid back, but.
Well, it's not in 5-year CIP, it's in fund balance.
Sorry, fund balance from Fund 35 to the Parks Fund.
Yeah, so along with that, it's also, we're having a few other projects that came in under, and so just shifting around funds as well between those. And a lot of the lines underneath that are dealing with that as well. We also have, sounds like council is moving forward with option 2 on the Sunrise Meadows Bike Park. And so we have option 1, option 2. So it sounds like if we're awarding a bid to SNL, we're going with option 2. And then other items to note is in storm drain operations, we're adding a new inspector position, yes.
And this came about because of the state's audit of our stormwater management program, and they recommended highly that we add an additional inspector.
Okay.
And then the other items are mostly just moving around some money and then also just finishing projects and finishing up those GL lines. Any questions from the council?
Okay, it is a public hearing, so we'll open it up for public input on the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget amendments. Please be respectful in your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and please avoid repetitive comments. Is anybody here for the budget amendments? One of these days, we're going to break the record. With that, I will entertain a motion from the council.
I'll move that we approve fiscal year 2021, 2022 budget amendments, Resolution R 2168 dated today, including option 2 on the Sunrise Meadows Park.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Wilden, a second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion? Carn?
Aye.
Pedeska?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
No, Michael. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Next public hearing is the North Shore Easement Vacations Ordinance 21-46.
Dan,
Not everybody
did
at
Jeremy
once.
ask you to cover that one?
I'm here on Zoom too, I can cover it.
Oh, Jeremy, there you are. Sorry, wasn't sure you were there. Jeremy, go ahead.
Yes, this is something that D.R. Horton's worked with engineering and planning on. There are some existing easements on the North Shore property that were used to access well 6 and for a water line. Those will become irrelevant once the plats are recorded because we will have public roads for access. Public roads will be the water line. And then for the short sections where the water line is outside of the right of way, they will be recording easements in those common open spaces. So we will be approving this, but Cindy's working with us. We will not be recording the vacations until the plat's recorded. So it'll be done simultaneously as far as the vacation and replacing it with a recorded plat. But this takes care of kind of the preemptive paperwork so that can all be ready to go when the time is ready.
Okay.
You good?
And there are findings and conditions in this map.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, it is a public hearing. Anybody here for public comment on the North Shore easement? Okay, I will close the public hearing portion of that and entertain a motion from the council.
I move to approve North Shore Easement Vacation Public Hearing Item Number 2, with findings and conditions in the staff report.
Second.
I have a first from Councilman Carn, a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion? Porter?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the drinking water, secondary water irrigation, and sewer impact fees facility plan update.
Jeremy, did Dan get thrown under the bus on this, or are you going to handle that for us?
I think Dan's there. Let's let him go for it.
All right.
Thanks, Jeremy. So about a month ago, we had a open house up at the fire station for these new impact fees facility plan updates. We had a few people come.
Did anybody show up?
Yeah, a couple.
Okay.
Yeah. Not maybe as many as we were thinking, but so we had, we're updating the drinking water, secondary water, sewer impact fee facilities plans are going up a little bit. I don't have all the numbers. I think you have them in your packet. And, obviously our consultants have gone through like the drinking and secondary water, identified the future projects with source, storage, and transmission lines that will be needed, and ran the numbers, and, they are going up a little bit. And
Dan?
yeah.
I'm so sorry. Council adopted those changes last month on the ones that were increased. That was the storm drain and the transportation. These are the ones that are just the changes to incorporate the school section. So there's no change on these three, the drinking water, irrigation, and storm sewer. These were passed in 2020. And recently, Kevin could clarify, there was an ombudsman's opinion having to do with schools and impact fees. And the recommendation was just to make sure there is no loophole. We included new sections in these impact fee facility plans that specifically address schools, specifically identify existing and proposed schools. And so those were included in the two that you adopted last month, the transportation and the storm drain, but it did not get into ones from last year, which are the three presenting to you now. So this adoption will not change any fees. All it does is adds the school section to these three impact fees that we adopted last year to make sure that there's no confusion with ombudsman's opinions. Kevin can clarify that. I forget which one that was recently, but this just kind of is a best practice, I guess.
So what this is so typically an impact fee will be for any development activity. It won't get into specifics whether it's schools or maybe it differentiates between residences and commercial projects. Many of our impact fees do that, but this actually identifies the additional system improvements for school facilities that are needed. And the state law actually says that. It says for schools, the city has to identify additional system improvements that are needed for schools. So that's really all this does, is just identify those system improvements that are needed to service the schools. So sorry for that. We could have summarized that in really 30 seconds, but you have the minor amendments to the IFFP. It doesn't affect the IFA, and it doesn't impact the actual impact fee charged. And if you have any questions on the ordinance, I'd be happy to answer those as well.
Dan, after this, we're going to put in an anti-hazing ordinance in our, just kidding. But welcome to the city for it.
Yeah, sorry. I when I saw that, I remembered the other ones, and I didn't realize I wasn't at that meeting.
Oh, that's fine.
I blame Jeremy. He's not here.
Yep.
So.
He's not here, so it's easy.
I owe Dan lunch. I'm so sorry.
I can't hear Jeremy at all.
So in the water studies, it's around 2.2, 2.5 is where you'll find those new paragraphs. And in the sewer study, it's around table 5 and table 6 is where you'll see those analysis.
So these are just calling out what these particular property owners owe.
It's specific to Alpine School District.
Right, yeah.
And also there's a charter school that's coming as well. So anytime we become aware of a school facility coming in, we can describe some of those school facilities that we believe will be, the locations of those, but it's really general. When we become aware of a specific school facility, we'll go back in and we'll amend the IFFP to show those specific system improvements, those additional system improvements that are needed for the schools. And that helps, that complies with the state law. and be expecting these regular IFFP updates when we become aware of locations of schools in the future.
In short, it removes any argument that the schools were not part of or considered in our IFFP. So by calling them out specifically now, it removes any argument that we didn't consider them when we developed our IFFPs.
Okay. Perfect. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here for public hearing item 3? Okay, any comments in? Okay, I will close the public hearing. If there's no further discussion from the council, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of public hearing item 3 as stated on the agenda, including any staff findings and conditions.
Second.
I have a first from Councilman Wilden, a second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilman Carn,
Aye.
Wilden,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to business items. The fiscal year 2021-2022 financial report, first quarter.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The first quarter of this year was good. We're up in every category except one, and that's building fees, which kind of is ironic because our building permits are higher, but these are the building fees that are more minor, which are our 1% surcharge and our basement fees. So every other category in our revenue and general fund is up this year. On the expenditure side, there's 2 departments that are a little over budget for 25% through the year, which is our Treasury Department, which is our credit card fees, which we have been collecting a convenience fee. Just started this last fiscal year, which is offsetting those increases. And I think that was part of the budget amendment, wasn't it? It was part of the budget amendment. So we show the revenue on the revenue side with the increase on the expenditure side. And other than that, is there any other questions concerning our first quarter financial?
I just have a quick question on this report when it says that a certain category is more or over by. Does that mean it's more than what we budgeted for?
It's over compared to last fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's comparing this first quarter to last fiscal year's first quarter.
So like sales tax revenue is just comparing quarter over quarter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that number, I'm sure we put a budget number in there, what we anticipate.
Yes.
That's higher than what we anticipated by considerable amount, I assume?
Yeah, if you look at the report, the first quarter report, that shows the budget, the analysis, the budget analysis. If you look at that one, that shows the actual budget that we have right now, based on the first quarter, yeah.
So for example, property taxes, we receive those in December. And so, generally speaking, it's just delinquencies and stuff, small numbers that we'd see the first quarter. And, but you wouldn't necessarily see us, hitting a big percentage of that because they're distributed in December.
Right.
And so in December, we'll collect pretty much almost 100% of our property taxes for the year in that quarter. And then the third and fourth quarter would be much, much smaller. So again, it's trying to keep things so that you as a council can see based on last year's first quarter, where are we at relative to those terms?
Yeah, I was struck by the sales tax revenue numbers are very strong.
Yes. Costco.
And it's more than that.
More than that, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
We're up quite a bit.
Amazon?
Yeah.
We're up quite a bit from a lot of the stimulus money that has really helped out. We're up in all sectors, and really this is a statewide phenomenon with all the cities based on kind of the COVID recovery.
I was listening to a report driving here that state and local governments are seeing a boom with inflation because sales tax revenues are going up accordingly.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a real quick question. So looking at with the yellow highlights where it's comparing quarter over quarter, trying to reconcile the numbers out. And I'm sorry to